now I have to switch to my note. Hello, you have stumbled onto another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we strive for ways to achieve those two goals. Part of the responsibility of financial independence is giving back to the community, serving your community that helped you to get where you are today, if you will. And that's why I'm so delighted to welcome our esteemed panel of experts in Opportunity Zones. Opportunity zones are just that. They are an opportunity to both safeguard our financial independence and to give back to the community. So joining me today, we have Rudy Bester, who's the CEO and Managing Director of Memory Trees Companies. Rudy retired from an executive career in financial technology to focus primarily on his family's charitable foundation, and their mission is giving back life in abundance. Memory Trees Corporation, registered as tax exempt as a 501c3 consultative and agency, sorry, I should have read this before, representing ECOSOC in the USA. The NGO works with global partners to create social impact and thought leadership strategies focused on three primary SDG objectives. Good thing we have an editor. SDG objectives: no poverty, zero hunger, and health and well-being. Three fantastic goals that I echo as well. Denise Cleveland Leggett is the Southeast Regional Administrator of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's largest region in the nation. Based in the Atlanta Regional Office, she oversees HUD programs and operations in Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. And most importantly, she attended Boston University in my own hometown. Cornell Cruz Jr. is the Executive Director of the Community Reinvestment Alliance of South Florida, a nonprofit membership organization serving Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties, dedicated to the enforcement and preservation of the Community Reinvestment Act of 1977. His previous employment includes 16 years at the Partners for Self-Employment, Inc. Ben Toro Spears is the Chief Strategy Officer for the Florida Housing Coalition, with an extensive background in affordable housing and community development, real estate finance, and data management. Ben's expertise includes fair housing, strategic planning, affordable housing development, geospatial analysis, and housing and community development activity impact assessments. And each of my guests today has a much longer and much more robust history than I'm able to share with you here. So please check out the website, getyourfillpodcast.com, to learn more about them. You can also see the video there. I'd like to start off today with an overview. First of all, everyone, welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Oh, and I didn't introduce, oh my goodness, because I didn't put it on my notes. As a co-host and helper, and as my mentor and friend, Ann McNeil is also joining us today. And Ann is the president of MCO Construction, and that is, and Ann, correct me if I'm misspeaking, but that is the first female African-American owned construction company in South Florida, and I bet not just South Florida. And Ann is also the founder of the National Association of Black Women in Construction. She is a mentor, a speaker. She is many things, and I'm grateful to call her my friend. So sorry that I didn't do that earlier. I'd like to start off today with an overview of the intention of opportunity zones and why an investor would be interested in taking advantage of that. And I think the most qualified person to speak to that is you, Denise. Would you mind taking that?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First, I want to say thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you all today. I have the privilege of overseeing a number of different incredible programs at HUD, programs that deal with the homeless, programs that deal with foster youth, and too many to count. But among those that I'm in charge of or oversee is the Opportunity Zones. And I am so excited about this particular program. Opportunity Zones were created by the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And it was implemented by this administration, this president, It creates capital gains benefits for those willing to invest in blighted, low income and undercapitalized communities. As a matter of fact, some of our worst communities are the beneficiaries from these opportunity zones. And the tax benefits are, if you hold the investment in these communities for 5 years, you get a 10% exclusion of capital gains. If you invest 7 years, you get a 15% exclusion. And if you invest for a 10-year period, which is what we really want, there are no capital gains taxes, and you reap the benefit. Not only do you reap the benefit, but more importantly, our communities reap the benefit. And I hope to tell you about some of those as we go on. When the law was first created, the hope was that there would be $100 billion invested over a 10-year period. That was the goal. The reality is that as of the end of 2019, in just 2 years, Opportunity Zones have driven $75 billion in new investments in these communities that I'm talking about. And as of the end of 2019, investment that would not have entered Opportunity Zones without the incentive. The Opportunity Zones were created by all 50 states. The governors were given the responsibility, and so that the federal government didn't want to say, okay, this is the Opportunity Zone. We wanted to make sure that the states had the ability to determine who the Opportunity Zone or what the Opportunity Zones were. And so all of 50 governors put in the Opportunity Zones, and they have to be, they looked at the Census Bureau, and they had to look at what the economic downturn or disadvantaged areas. And so they created those opportunities. So all 50 states, there are over 8,700 Opportunity Zones in the country. And I am so excited because not only have I been able to be at groundbreakings for Opportunity Zones, I've actually seen the work that has gone on in these communities, and it's amazing. It is life-changing. And one last thing, my brother, who is also a lawyer, used to oversee the empowerment zones, which is another organization, another program that was implemented a few decades ago by another administration. And so I asked him when I was tasked with overseeing Opportunity Zones in the region, and wanted to get his opinion, because he had done programs that were trying to help these communities. But he said the Opportunity Zones are life-changing, and they're life-changing for a number of different reasons. With the empowerment zone, they were totally dependent on government funding. So if the government funding goes down, which it eventually did, the empowerment zones go down. With Opportunity Zones, it drives private investment. And people say, well, it's just a ploy for the rich to give them tax incentives and advantages. But that's not what it is, because I've seen it firsthand. What it does is it invokes people to say, okay, this community is worth investing in. Yes, the incentive is a tax incentive, but the ultimate goal is to change the trajectory for the lives of the people in that community. And I am so proud to be a part of Opportunity Zones. We are just starting the $75 billion in 2 years. We hope to double that as the years go on. But that's a general overview. At the end of this, I'll give you websites that you can go to get more information on Opportunity Zones. One from HUD, and two from HUD, one from the Department of Commerce, and the IRS, one from the IRS, that gives you more information on Opportunity Zones.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Denise. Now, each of our guests today has had some first-hand experience with Opportunity Zones. So I would like to just ask each of you to give us an overview of what your personal experience has been, and then we can launch into some other things, other topics. Rudy, would you start that off for us?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Christine, and thank you for inviting me to join the panel. It's great to have this opportunity to also learn from many of you, because most of you, I think, are sort of real estate or fixed asset type pros in terms of not only your day-to-day activity, but also in terms of your knowledge about opportunity zones. My focus is primarily business. So for me, the opportunity zone angle is sort of a combination of some of our operating entities. So when Christine made the introduction, she mentioned Memory Trees Corporation, which is our 501c3. It focuses on community revitalization as an objective anyway, but we have additional operating entities, and one of them is MTC for Memory Trees Corporation or companies, MTC Equity Partners, which is actually an opportunity zone fund, and I'm the fund manager for that fund. So the good news is I'm the fund manager. The bad news is I have to act really quickly, because under the legislation, when we have funding available for allocation, capital investment, I literally have 90 days to move that capital from the fund into the opportunity zone in terms of making an investment. My approach in terms of the actual fund, and this is actually kind of a bit of an irony in terms of what I'm going to share with you because of the timeline and the date line. But for 2020, we made our first and single investment in an opportunity zone business. And the reason why I say there's some irony is because the date of the actual investment was March the 16th. So in theory, you could say that was the date we opened the business, and that was the same date we closed the business because of COVID-19. Now, if you think of it from a pure timing point of view, fortunately, with capital allocated, the business is able to weather the storm and to survive in the absence of generating revenue for, in this case, a 6-month period. So in that sense, just merely making an investment in a business located in an opportunity zone actually provided some level of sustainability, certainly financial sustainability, for the business to continue operating and actually be a viable entity. The timeline that I just mentioned, so the sort of start date for us, which was March 16th, which was also the same date we closed, is only now kind of migrating or evolving into sort of a new evolutionary type environment where we can say, now we can start doing business again. You know, so it's been an interesting experience, because for the entire fiscal year to date, 2020, we've done one deal, and that deal has been effectively inactive almost since the date of inception to today. You know, so my approach there is when I view it in terms of what probably, and maybe I'm generalizing and it's not fair, but what you guys do from an opportunity zone investment point of view, in terms of investing in real estate, you are, if I can use an analogy, you are sort of the Warren Buffetts of the opportunity zones, because it's patient capital coming in, and it's primarily focused on real estate, which means it's sort of a passive investment. So using that same analogy, I would say, in that example, if you're Warren Buffett, I'd be Carl Icahn. So I'd be the activist investor who actually moves into an opportunity zone, finds an underperforming business, a business that can benefit from an injection of capital, and I would invest in a business in an opportunity zone as opposed to making a passive investment in real estate. So my approach is probably different to most of yours, but as I said, I'm making an assumption because I don't know you.
Excellent. Thank you, Rudy. I like that you're here and doing businesses versus real estate, because that's nice. Oh, sorry. Because we might have mistakenly just brushed over that whole side of the opportunity zone and just focused on the real estate. So I'm glad you're here to keep us on track with that. Cornell, could you give us an overview of your experiences with opportunity zones?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me, Christine. I appreciate it. I think my experience is a little different. And while I love the program and its in the thought process of the program and what the program is supposed to do, I don't see that happening a lot here in Miami-Dade County. I can give you two examples. One is less than 2 miles from my house, in North Miami, Florida. The area was actually a government dump. Throughout my teenage years, it was in the 70s into the 80s. It was always a dump. They finally closed it. It took them 30 or 40 years to clean it up. It's 221 acres. They have three developments on it now. 3 buildings that are on it now. And the whole entire area is an opportunity zone, but the rents in the building for a 1-bedroom start at $1,800. Here in Miami-Dade County, for low to moderate income folks, and it's in the low to moderate income census tract, for those folks, they can't afford that. We are at this particular point, Miami Homes for All put out a study in August. In Miami-Dade County alone, we need 121,000 affordable units as of last July. That's what we need in this county. So the opportunity zone, as far as that particular project is going, I just don't see it. I can see where, as the young lady was speaking earlier, and I'm sorry, your name escapes me, but was speaking earlier how people are saying that this is just a land grab for the rich. But if you think about it from that point of view and you look at that project, I can understand why that's being said. We have another project in Overtown in downtown Miami, just north of downtown. It was a historically black area. My grandmother owned a beauty shop in that area for over 40 years. My mother grew up there. My father lived there for many, many years. I know the area very, very well. There's directly across the street from where my mother's beauty shop was. They're putting up a building, 337 units, and it's an opportunity zone. 337 units. Of those 337 units, only 35 are for low to moderate income folks, and that's up to 140%. So why I love the concept of an opportunity zone, investing in blighted areas, especially when it comes to housing, investing in blighted areas. I love the concept. In some places, it's just not happening. It appears to be let me be as diplomatic as possible. It appears to be another land grab for the rich. And here in South Florida, we just can't stand that again. You know, we have a couple of things pushing up against us. We have climate change and what we call climate gentrification, where developers are actually going in, buying the land in the high ground, and 90% of the high ground in all 3 counties runs through low to moderate income areas. So those folks are being bought out. Where are they going to live? So I think I would love to see the opportunity zones the concept be actually done for the people, but in those 2 that I can relate right now, those 2 examples, that's not happening.
Well, I know you're not taking questions now, but I certainly understand, your concerns. I was down with Secretary Carson and Miami-Dade recently, and but we went to an opportunity zone opening, and really one of the first of its kind in the country. It was a combination of the opportunity zones, our housing authority down there in Miami-Dade, and we had the developer by the name of Related. I'm sure you're familiar with Related, who has been a stalwart in affordable housing. They have some housing that's market rate, but this particular unit was primarily in the opportunity zone that was geared towards affordable housing. So it is happening in Miami-Dade. I also was in Miami proper with Mayor Suarez, and you know, looking at potential opportunities there and projects there where there is a set aside for affordable housing. It is a tough row in terms of finding affordable housing. It's the one thing that has been one complaint no matter where I go. But when you have developers who are committed, when you find developers who want to make it work, they can make it work. When we first started with Opportunity Zones, the conversation that I had, a lot of people were like, oh, developers, we can't make the numbers pencil out. We can't do affordable housing. And now we've got more and more. And I've got, I'll stop talking, but I do have other examples of people who are committed to doing affordable housing within Opportunity Zones. I understand your concerns, but it is happening among some of the developments and some of the developers.
Okay, and I understand that. However, when I look at a project that has 337 apartments in it, and only 35 go to LMIs, and that's up to 140%, I have to question that. When I see a project where the building is no less than 13 stories, the one in North Miami is no less than 13 stories, and an apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, starts at $1,800. Or if and I know there, I've had the same discussion with Mayor Suarez as well, and I see these large developers putting up 300 units, and maybe 5% of those units go to affordable housing. That's not hitting. And they're putting them up in low to moderate income areas and low moderate income census tracts as well. Though at needing 121,000 is barely putting a dent into our issue, into our problem. Here in South Florida, we can't afford to look 5 years down the road. I had this conversation with my city commissioner in North Miami. He wanted to say, well, Cornell, you know, we know that we own the land, and we're going to get tax breaks. We're going to get the tax money from the land, and we'll build. But we can't afford to wait. That's the whole issue. We have water claiming us from. We're surrounded by water here. We have the Atlantic Ocean on one side, the Everglades on the other side. Both of those things, we have a narrow strip. And with the water continuing to rise and the storms continuing to get worse, and the affordability of our area continuing to be challenged, not to mention income inequality, we just can't afford to wait. We can't afford to wait for a developer to go, well, you know, I'm going to build 300 units and I'm going to give 10 units to affordable housing. We just can't. That's not sustainable for the folks that live here. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go.
No, it's okay, Cornell. I know it's you're passionate about it, and that's beautiful. But I don't want to also, I want to give Ben an opportunity to speak, and I want to also keep it a little more high level than just South Florida, although I know it's obviously, like Tylene's asking the question, where is the accountability when these things happen? But I want to keep us on track, and we are gonna come back to that. Ben, could you give us your experience, please?
Yeah, sure thing. So I work for, and I do appreciate this overview of each of our perspectives, because that is one of the fruits of this incentive, is that so many people across the community development spectrum get involved. So it is important to recognize where each of us are coming from. So thank you for that structure. But the organization that I work for, the Florida Housing Coalition, we're a statewide nonprofit, and our mission is to ensure that there's a sufficient supply of affordable housing in every community in the state of Florida. So we're statewide, and what we do in pursuit of that mission is primarily working with state agencies, local governments, and nonprofit developers to develop affordable housing. So we are working on a project level with project sponsors. So we're helping do pre-development, we're helping line up capital for projects, And on the local government side, we help address land use regulations and zoning issues and other incentives that local governments can pursue to support affordable housing. So that is at a high level what the Florida Housing Coalition does. So my particular experience with this Opportunity Zones incentive has been a lot of hand-holding and instruction with project sponsors as well as local governments. So when the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed and we discovered this small provision in that broader bill, the Opportunity Zone incentive, a lot of local governments here in Florida were really interested in it. So the Florida Housing Coalition got a whole bunch of calls asking about this incentive and how local governments can help attract private capital in these opportunity zones in those communities. So we've been working with local governments. We have also been working with nonprofit developers and helping them try to source capital, which has been a real challenge, and to line up different subsidy sources. When you're talking about affordable housing, the capital stack for these projects is often crazy. So helping kind of under low capacity nonprofit organizations manage the capital stack to include opportunity zones and navigate all of the different regulations across those capital sources has been a real challenge. But I'll leave it there. I hope that's a good overview of what I've been doing.
That is an excellent overview. Thank you. And actually, my next comment and question was going to be that there has been an accusation, and especially you see in the media, of exactly what Cornell is talking about, that the opportunity zones are just a way for the rich to get richer, as has always been the case, and it's much easier to make money. But it has also been, it's not just about building affordable housing, right? It's also about pulling money into the community so that the folks that are there hopefully can benefit and bring jobs and stuff. But I deliberately left Denise off of that last overview because when she speaks to her experience with opportunity zones, I think she's also going to speak to this question that I've just raised. So Denise, could you tell us about some of the projects that you've been involved in?
Yes, I'm very happy to, because while I understand the pitfalls, I also have seen firsthand the benefits of opportunity zones. For instance, in the city of Birmingham, they're a prime example because you have a collaboration between the public sector, the mayor, the community, and developers, all working together to try and accomplish a goal. About a year and a half ago, we broke ground on a dilapidated business of the American Life building, and it had been abandoned. And so this developer, with the blessings of the city, went into this opportunity zone and this project and totally revamped it. They sent us pictures of the apartments that are coming, their workforce and low income for residents, and it is absolutely beautiful. This was in an abandoned, blighted area, and so once this started, they are now interested in trying to do more of the same. We've got in the city of Memphis, the developers there have decided that they wanted to do a total revamp of the Memphis area. It was the rundown, blighted area of Memphis. They have invested $750 million. They originally had set it at $950 million, but they did some changes, and so now $750 million, which is still a huge investment. And that includes not only housing, but businesses, as the young man had said earlier, businesses, the area where the housing authority residents are, there's been revamped, but it's a food desert. So they're building grocery stores, a number of other things. It's about developing the entire community. I look in Vicksburg, Mississippi, where there was an old sawmill that had been run down, had gone out of business, and the developer, his family went in, bought up the sawmill, revitalized it, revamped it. It is now a working sawmill, and it employs, it's bringing employment. And their big problem now is they're trying to bring workforce housing to the community. It's a good problem to have when your people were out of jobs and out of work, and you have an opportunity zone that the benefits of that brought that city, back to life. And I mentioned the Miami-Dade with the combination with Mayor Jimenez and with the housing authority there and private developers, totally revitalizing the area there. And then the other area in Miami is Liberty City. Liberty City was one of the worst housing authorities in the country, completely blighted, crime-ridden, and they have started and completed the first phase of that, where they have totally revamped. They have affordable housing there. They've revamped businesses, and it's mixed income, because mixed income communities are what help sustain communities. So you have a number of a large amount of set asides where it becomes, where there are public housing, you have to match for match the number of public housing units, but then you can add mixed income units which help sustain that community. Charlotte, the city of Charlotte is doing housing. Phoenix, Arizona, who that's not in my region, but they've done multiple. And so I will also tell you a site that you can go to at the end of this call that will, we have a year look back at what has been done through opportunity zones and where they can be found. And so I'll give you that site so that you can, anyone on this call can take a look at what we've been doing, where these projects are, and the benefits. But they're in a number of different places, and I don't want to take all the time, but I see the benefit. It's not just talk. It's not just groundbreaking. It's not just, we want to do this. It's just not pie in the sky. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I've seen residents who are ecstatic and happy because it has changed their lives, changed their communities, and I see the positive, and I know it exists.
Thank you, Denise. And I can hear from Ben and Rudy both that you're looking for projects. You want to make things happen, but it sounds like from Ben's perspective, you're having a little bit of trouble getting the funding. I mean, investors want to make money, right? That's what they do, and a tax incentive might not be enough. And as a matter of fact, in the Boston area, I've spoken to some of my friends who are developers, and they're not necessarily interested in opportunity zones because they feel that the turnaround time for their profit is going to be too long. Oh, I have to keep my money in there for 10 years. I'm not interested in that. What if the community doesn't perform the way I hope it will? What if my money isn't enough to turn the community to where the value of the property is going to be something that's a benefit to me? So there are some challenges, obviously, in serving all the different masters that we're trying to serve with opportunity zones. And I'm looking for suggestions from any of the panelists who want to talk about ways that developers can partner with people, can find funding, can do things so that they're not just coming in and, basically paving over the community and starting fresh, that they're taking the richness and the diversity that's already in that community and just making it stronger and making it better for everyone.
Well, I would agree with that, and I'm not going to talk long, but but I think that it really, the fact that there's $75 billion that have been invested in opportunity zones is evidence that there are people who are finding a way. And when because the people are not just throwing money, after something just to say, well, I feel good about, investing in opportunity zones. It all has to pencil out. They do it for good reasons, but also they've got to stay in business and make money. And so, but it can work together. I've seen it where it works together. It doesn't work together in all cases, no, but it is possible. And it takes a lot of hard work and a lot of discussion to make it work. And again, I would advise anyone, when you get the site, go talk to some of the developers who have been successful and ask them, what did you do? What are your best practices? We have in this study showing what the best practices are. But I would say talk to them. Down in Florida, talk to the developers who are being successful, who've invested. How do they do it, and how are they benefiting the community at the same time, being responsible to their employees and their investors? And I've seen it. It's possible. It's not for everyone, but it can be done.
Thank you, Denise. Ben, what have you seen working in your experiences?
So the success stories so far, there have been a number of low-income housing tax credit deals coming out of the state of Florida. And I don't want to go too deep into the weeds on housing tax credits, but suffice it to say that LIHTC has been the most productive vehicle for affordable housing production in our nation's history. So it is an established method of financing housing, affordable housing in this country. So when the OZ statute first came out, we were in my industry, we were all very excited to explore the ways that we could marry OZ equity with tax credit equity. And that has happened in isolated instances. And I say isolated because by and large, the projects, the tax credit deals that stacked some OZ into it, those projects were already happening. And the fact that those projects were in an OZ helped incentivize the tax credit pricing a little bit, increased the value of those tax credits by just a bit. And that helped offset some of the negative impact of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act on the cost of tax credits. So in those cases, it has benefited tax credit deals that were already in the works. Other success stories, and you did prompt success stories, those other success stories have really been generated by collaborative working groups at the local level. And often this is an initiative that starts with a CRA, for instance, or a nonprofit foundation organization, some non-governmental, non-project sponsor entity that can help coordinate across the different actors in that community. And in that case, there can be a third party that helps negotiate the expectations of the OZ investor with the reality of pricing units that are affordable to lower income households. So that negotiation is really important because sometimes the OZ investor is expecting a rate of return that is unrealistic for fundamentally the rental, the cost of rent for a unit in that building. So there really is a need for that negotiation and coordination element. And when that happens, when all of those stars align, you can have a pretty successful project that isn't just about housing. It's often about bringing together multiple stakeholders. And that can ultimately build an infrastructure in the community that can last outside of this OZ conversation. It can extend to business development and housing development. So I'll leave it at that in terms of success stories in the state of Florida.
Well, it sounds like what you're saying is that it has to be a partnership, that you're not going to have a success story unless you have a lot of players all signed up, all invested in this commitment. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so at a very elemental level, we're finding that OZ is a relatively shallow subsidy in the capital stack. So you're not going to have a project, generally you're not going to have a project with 100% OZ equity in it to make it happen from a real estate perspective. So it is necessary for you to have other actors, financial actors, local government, working together to make these projects work.
Rudy, was there something that I thought I saw you had been wanting to say something there?
Yeah, you know, I can sort of maybe add some content to what Ben was sharing. Working with the local towns and cities around me. So I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, but the cities like West Palm Beach and Boynton Beach, for example, have offered to donate land that they own that is located in opportunity zones if someone like MTC Equity Partners, our Opportunity Zone Fund, were willing to develop it. So that sweetens the capital stack in addition to the comments that Ben alluded to, like the tax credits, as an example. The other thing that's of interest there is from an investment point of view, the investors, depending on what their sort of thesis is in terms of whether they're going to make an investment or not, as a general rule, first want to know if it's a good investment or not. And then if it were located in an opportunity zone, that's a bonus, right? So in other words, if you bring a potential investment to a group of investors, the first thing that they look at, to Ben's point, is the rate of return. And sometimes that rate of return has some flexibility to it as well, because there are nonprofit agencies, you know, community foundations and such like. So NGO type organizations who will make concessionary investments and forego perhaps you know, a driver for a private investor, like let's say a low or a high single-digit return before they would even look at the investment. So some of the sort of more philanthropic type of investors will approach it from a different point of view. And then if you can sort of add to that sort of capital stack a combination of some concessionary investors, or perhaps investors who are comfortable with a single-digit return, whatever that might be, and that sort of traditional public-private, you know, partnership with the local cities or county or whatever it might be, who can, as I said at the beginning, sweeten the capital stack by saying, we'll donate the land if you develop it. It doesn't have to be, you know, in any way something that circumvents you from doing something in an opportunity zone. But the first thing is the deal. Is it a good deal, yes or no? And then if it's located in an opportunity zone, as I said, that's a bonus. So it kind of works in that way rather than the other way around, where people, if they are specifically looking to do a deal in an opportunity zone, that'd be tough because you are geographically obviously restricted by the boundaries.
Thank you. Cornell, I want to ask you what you think. First of all, I want to say in the areas that you were discussing earlier, that you see that the rents are out of sight, they're just building luxury properties and not having a lot of care about the impact on the community. Are you seeing at all the any improvements outside of that housing development, anything around the community, in the surrounding community, that would be considered a little bit of a win or a little bit of a benefit of the opportunity zone?
Yes. For instance, in Overtown, where that 337 apartment, 335 project is going up, there are some other things that are being built around it. They just, as a matter of fact, another building that's just to the east, just to the west of that, that's also in an opportunity zone, just won a a legal case Monday, and the Target's going to go in there. They have been disputing about, they have been going back and forth about the land and who owned it and so on and so forth, but it was finally settled this past Monday. But the Target's going to go in there, and that's going to bring some retail to that particular area. But to the south of that is still a food desert. Just maybe 10 blocks away to the to the north of it is still a food desert, and that's been a blighted area. From that particular area of Overtown has been blighted for many years. So I guess we'll see what's going to happen. But back to my original point, with the prices being so high, you drive those people who live in that area now are not going to be able to afford to live in that area 2 years from now. That's for me is what loses. I'm all for, let's have mixed social and mixed income in an area. I'm all for that, because I think that builds an area up, but not to the price point that it drives out the folks who are low to moderate income, have been living there, had families there all their lives, and now they got to go. And here, where are you going to go? You know, you either, what are we going to do? We're going to move all the low to moderate income folks up to the central part of the state and fly them in the Miami-Dade County to do work. We have that problem already in Key West. Key West is so, as price all the low to moderate income folks out of Key West, they now live in Homestead and have to drive 2 hours one way every day to work. And there's only one way to get down there, and that's on US 1. So yeah, there are some. Believe me, I understand what she's saying. When she's saying that there's. I'm sorry, Ms. Denise Cleveland. I definitely understand there are some great things happening in other parts of the country, and I get that. And we have small increments of things happening here. And I wish the developers in the state of Florida were like those developers in those places she mentioned. I really wish that. But you know, I think some good things can grow out of it. And like I said, I love the concept of the opportunity zones. I just wish that it was something that was really pushing. That's not at her level. That's at the county level. Like Ben was stating, you know, the counties and the cities have to negotiate. And I honestly believe they don't know how.
Yeah, I almost think in listening to y'all that it has to come from the community, that the community has to say, this is what we envision for ourselves, help us find that. And obviously, you know, that's a little difficult when you're just trying to put a meal on your table. So I think you need people to come in from outside who haven't lived there their whole life, but who want to keep the richness of that area and not to, you know, like you say, kick everybody out and say, okay, you can go live in, you know, north of Georgia and commute down here to Florida, right? That's not what you want. So I would like to invite right now, real quickly, because we're getting into our last 15 minutes here, to invite all the folks who are listening in, if anyone has some questions that you'd like to pose to the panelists.
This is Ann McNeil. Yes, I am unmuting because I feel like a parent sitting here. Really thankful that all of your awesome guests were able to participate in the session and giving both sides. I had the pleasure, and thank you for asking me to participate in the planning of this event, but I had the pleasure of meeting every single one of these guests at an opportunity. It was an opportunity. Rudy at the Opportunity Zone event that was hosted by Riviera Beach, and also had an opportunity to meet both Rudy and Ben, I believe at Riviera Beach, and then Denise at an event in Miami for Lad Builders Organization. I have received so much information sitting here listening to both sides. I get it. I get both sides. And Denise, you did not know this, but I am actually sitting in the middle of Liberty City, which is my office is in Liberty City. So I can look out of my office window and see those projects that you are referring to. So I do get it. But what I also get, though, is the fact that as the founder of the National Association for Black Women in Construction, we're unable to work on those projects. So that's a conversation for another day, another call. And I want to take this opportunity to invite all of you to a Congressional Black Caucus reception that we're hosting tomorrow. And one of the breakout sessions is none other than on opportunity zones, okay? And so we will make sure we get those invitations to all of you shortly after this podcast is over. But what I want to do is I want to thank you all for educating, because I think that the education is the key. And for each of us, going back to Rudy's point, we do have the power. We just have to connect at a certain level for our voice to be, and for us to be able to participate. And so that is what this podcast has helped me. And we're going to ask everybody to go on mute, because I think somebody just attempted to answer their phone. So Chris, if you can help us mute that person, would be great. But I just want to just thank you. I'm going to turn it back to you, Chris, and look forward to seeing all of your guests and our guests here today. But the listeners to join us, if you're interested in finding out information about our Congressional Black Caucus reception, talking about opportunity zones tomorrow between 5 and 8, you can reach us by going to the NABWIC and be there. And so, Chris, I'll release this back to you in the event others may have questions or comments. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Ann. And Tylene just put the link to tomorrow's event into the chat. And if you're listening on the podcast, Savannah, we have to delete this because that is going to have already passed. And I don't know, Ann, will that be something that people can go and listen to the recording after the event?
Yes, we will have it. We'll have all of this information on our Facebook group, and also Jackie Perry, who's over our marketing. We can talk about making arrangements to place it on our website too. But yes, that would be great to do that. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. We'll include a link to that on the podcast page. Yeah, and I think Ann was breaking up a little bit, but it is nabwic.org, nabwic.org is the website for that. And now I want to ask each of you, what did I not ask? Where did I fall down? Where did I fail to ask you something that, or not touch on something that you really feel is important to bring up? And you can just jump in, or I can go alphabetically again, however you want to do it.
Well, this is Denise. I'll say my last piece. I thought this was fabulous. It's wonderful getting all of the perspectives. I do believe that, as you had mentioned before, it's a matter of collaboration with public, with private, with developers. One of the things that they did, that the past governor of Mississippi did, was he set aside a percentage of LIHTC for people who are invested in opportunity zones. That's the kind of collaboration we're talking about. Everybody working together. The reason why Birmingham is so successful, because they had private, public, and community involvement in pushing forward their developments. And so I, am the eternal optimist. I want to see things work because I see so many of our programs at HUD working, but it takes collaboration, it takes tenacity, it takes pushing forward, and I understand the pitfalls. I know them all too well. They're the community that we serve at HUD. Vast majority of our HUD properties are in opportunity zones, which means they're in the most blighted areas. So we have a concern for pushing up these communities. And I just want to leave with the sites, the opportunityzones.hud.gov is one of the sites, eda.gov/opportunity-zones, U.S. Department of Commerce and Economic Development, and IRS OpZone, irs.gov. And they all have more information about opportunity zones and what you can do. They're frequently asked questions, everything that you could think of, they have it on those sites. And we have a year-long report that has been put out by Opportunity Revitalization Opportunity Zone Committee that's headed up by Secretary Carson, but it tells you about best practices, it tells you about opportunity zones and kind of where we're headed and the $75 billion that's been spent to date. But thank you so much for putting this together. I think it's been fantastic. I always like to hear all viewpoints and then, you know, see what can we do to make it better. That's always the goal. How can we make things better for the people that we serve? But thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Denise. I appreciate it. Who would like to go next to tell me what
Yeah,
I
so
should have asked you?
I'll just make a quick comment, and I'll kind of echo what Denise was saying. I think this is great. Thanks for putting it together. Very briefly, if I were to wear sort of two different hats, on one hand, you as an investor, you may have capital gains, and obviously you have to make a decision as to where you would want to invest those capital gains, if at all. But that's really sort of the crux of the investment thesis from an investor point of view. As a fund manager, the opportunity zone funds are somewhat restricted in that they have to allocate the capital very quickly, because you literally, as I said earlier at the beginning, have 90 days to deploy the capital. So you have to structure and create the deal. Then you have to build the capital stack or create or put together the financing round and invite the investors in, and then you have to execute, right? So maybe to Mr. Cruz's comments, you know, it's a complicated deal to put together, because everything kind of has to fall in place domino style, and it's not easy to do. But I am absolutely, much like you, optimistic and encouraged by what I've seen so far, because just in my immediate vicinity, hands-on, the funds that have flown from investment money that could have gone anywhere into opportunity zones has been quite significant, because it's visibly noticeable. So I think it's probably one of the greatest tax incentive acts for revitalizing lower income communities I've seen in my lifetime.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rudy. Cornell, do you want to go next? You're next on my screen.
Just Christine, I'll just say that I'm thankful for the opportunity to speak on my particular feelings involving the opportunity zones. Again, I'll say it again. I love the concept overall. I wish we could work it better. And I would say, and I'm not an investment guy. Don't pretend to be. I love my community, and for me, sometimes the return on investment is building a better community, not just a dollar, you know, and squeezing how many dollars you can get out of it. Sometimes just every now and then, I want the community to be and the overall health of the community to be the return on the investment. Everybody wants to make a dollar. Trust me, we all want it. We all have to eat, but some of us, sometimes you can eat a couple of hot dogs instead of having steak every day. So again, I love the overall concept of opportunity zones. I just wish we could apply it better. Thanks.
Thank you, Cornell. Yeah, I think we need to study the ones that have worked and see how that happened, right? Ben, could you give us your parting comments, what you wish I would have asked you?
Yeah, well, in terms of, for me, it's a question of where do we go from here? And this opportunity zones, the origins of it is bipartisan in nature. And you can see that in how the broad cross-section of stakeholders that saw benefits accruing to them at the onset of this incentive in the last few years. And that's a really good thing. We need more private equity. We need this new sort of investment in communities and in affordable housing and social impact-oriented projects. We need that. There are some structural challenges baked into this. In particular, This is a subsidy based on capital appreciation, not on community benefit. So as we're talking about next steps going forward, it sure would help out the community development industry if there was an assurance from Congress that this sort of a program will continue going forward. And that assurance that it will continue is so important because this stuff takes time. Affordable housing takes time to create. We need to establish an infrastructure that works for this. The tax credit community back in '86 took years to figure it out and create a structure that could crank out deals over and over and over again. So we need to recognize that this, for the real benefits from a systemic perspective, to extend to communities in all of these opportunity zones, we need to have assurance that this is going to continue for a long time. And in order for that assurance to be secured by Congress, there need to be some changes so that every single community can recognize, can be confident that the benefits will be felt by residents in those communities. And if they do not have that assurance, if the structure continues that the subsidy is exclusively based on capital appreciation and not on community benefit, I think there's going to be a lot of pushback. So I would love to see this bipartisan nature continue and for some changes, and I know congressional action is a mountain to overcome, but I also have hope that we can make some of those changes to make sure that everyone benefits and not exclusively equity investors. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ben, very much. And I want to thank you so much for being here and keeping me honest and making sure that, and putting me in touch with all of our panelists today. Do you have anything you'd like to say in parting?
Thank you.
Beautifully spoken. Thank you all so much, very, very much. I'm going to stop the recording. And I think I told you in the, oops, no. Oh, no, that's not what I want to do. Oops. Sorry, I don't want to. I wanted to stop the whole thing. Here we go. Yes, I want to stop.